Hey everybody, it's your girl Planet Ty on deck. I hope you guys are having a great day, afternoon, and or evening whenever you guys are seeing this. So check it out. Today I have decided to break away from my vlogs and step back into my true crime, because this is a story that was actually forwarded to me, and I took a peek at it, and as I started putting all the pieces together, I was like, this is a story I must share with you guys at home. Now, this is a story that takes place in South Korea. And our main character is a guy by the name of Molar Daddy. If you guys want to hear the information that I've put together about Molar Daddy, all you guys got to do, stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for being back on deck. I really do appreciate that. If you guys are new, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you guys subscribe to the channel, it's completely free. If you thumbs up the video, I will populate higher in the SEO, which means anytime that I put out a video that you may be interested in, it will recommend you, so you can just go ahead and click the video and see what I'm talking about that day. Okay, so to all the people who have been around, welcome back, and I love you lots. So without further ado, let's jump into this true crime. Okay, so Lee Young-hak was born July 26, 1982 in South Korea. As you guys know, I have my notes here to remind me of everything that's said or that I put together, because I'm not going to remember all this, you guys. Okay, so it's reported that he came from a very poor family. His family did not have a lot growing up. Some would even say that they were robbing Peter to pay Paul, which is a term that is commonly used amongst Americans, which pretty much just means living paycheck to paycheck, or in some cases hand to mouth. Okay, so this is how Lee was living in his earlier part of life. They didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of resources. Okay, so from a young age, he suffered from a rare tumor. I'll put the name on the screen, as I cannot pronounce it and I do not want to butcher it. And when I go to Google to show me how to pronounce it, when I say it back, it sounds a little funny. So I'll put the name up there for you guys to see. But Lee did suffer from a rare tumor. The tumor was so rare that only a handful of people in South Korea ever had it. So imagine how rare that has to be. If you can count on one hand how many people are suffering from this or that illness or whatever else, it has to be really small, right? I mean, the group of people. So it's not very common, which means there's not a lot of resources for medication, taking care of it, and all that. Okay. Now, the tumor was so rare that the doctors themselves, they didn't initially have a lot of information on the tumor, how it started, where it come from, if it was hereditary, all the background stuff. They didn't have a lot of information on it. Okay, Lee's family received donations for having the tumor. Okay, so because they didn't have money to pay for the surgery or medicine to treat, or even medicine for exploratory treatments, this is just where the doctors are basically getting together saying, well, based on what we know, based on scientific research, if we were to combine this and that and put it together, it should have this or that outcome, right? They didn't have any money for even exploratory treatments. So the people, when they heard about his rare tumor, they got together and they start donating money. They go, oh my God, this guy's coming from a very poor family. His family must be devastated. They don't have the money to kind of, deal with this thing. So let's put it together so we can help him. So they did donate money for Lee with his tumor. And then Lee's family, with the donations, they had his tumor removed. So big plus, big bonus for him, right? So for quite some time, an extended period, it didn't say the duration exactly in my research, but for an extended period of time, from my understanding, from the time that he was a kid to a young adult, he suffered from this tumor. Okay, and then because of all the donations and the kindness of strangers, he was able to have that tumor removed. He had surgery and had it taken care of. Okay, so when the surgery was completed, Lee was actually left with only his molars. Okay, so his molars, for the people who don't understand that, it just means he was only left with his back teeth. Okay, your molars, your back teeth, that's all he was left with after he had the surgery to have the tumor removed. Okay, and from that point on, he became known as Molar Daddy, right? So you guys see how one thing can happen in your life, and seemingly it just like it, I don't know, like it brands you in some way. It becomes, it's a part of you, and it's taken and just turned into something else. So this, horrible thing, this, guy had this massive tumor, he had it, suffered from it, a lot of pain and everything else like that. Then the tumor was taken away, but as a part of the tumor being taken away, he had to lose all his teeth. besides what? His molars. Thus, he was given the name Molar Daddy. But now, before we give too much sympathy to this gentleman, let's learn a little bit more about him, okay? So he was only left, and so that's how he got his name Molar Daddy, okay? So Lee's story was actually publicized in mass media, okay? So it was spreading like wildfire all over South Korea. I'm sure it probably even spread to North Korea and just different parts of the world, okay? Like, wow, he had this massive tumor removed, okay? A very rare tumor that, the doctors and scientists didn't know very much about, but they were able to successfully remove the tumor. But as a byproduct of them being able to remove that tumor, they had to take out all of his teeth besides his molars. So it's a really big story, very, very popular. You guys like the comments and let me know if you guys ever heard of this one, okay? So because of all the attention that he got, it actually led to Lee creating a book called Molar Daddy's Happiness, right? Now that seems like that's on the positive upturn of it, right? You took something that could have potentially been devastating and just horrible, right? And you transformed it. You turned it around and made something seemingly good about it. Good out of it. So the book that he created, Molar Daddy's Happiness, long and short, was pretty much and don't quote me on this, but from my assumption, it's pretty much about the process that he went through, what he endured, and then how he felt after he was able to have this huge rare tumor removed, okay, even though he was left with only his molars, okay. So down the line, Lee married a woman by the name of Cho Mi-sun, and I could be pronouncing her name wrong, the first name anyhow, but Mi-sun I'm sure about because it's spelled M-I-S-U-N, okay? So, and they had a daughter named Yoons, okay? Now, so look, his situation is, he started his life out rocky, not so great of a situation. He had this he had this tumor removed, okay? He's left with just his molars, but life is looking up for him because, he wrote a book, he got a lot of media attention, okay? Now, I should also say that with that media attention that he received, he actually received lots more donations, okay? Because a lot of people at that time, they were very interested in Lee's story, to them, this would be, hot gossip is, just like it would be to us in the U.S., okay? Hot gossip and news if something unique like this were to happen that was very rare, okay? So, to the residents of South Korea, it was very, very popular for them to hear about it. A lot of people wanted to know how was he surviving. They were concerned, about his health and well-being. There was a lot of generous people out there, okay? They were totally bought into what his story was and how they could somehow help, okay? So it was beautiful. I want to say that the public kind of band together to help Lee. I think that was a very beautiful turn of events for him. And I think that it may just been what he needed at that time because, again, his family was not wealthy or well-to-do. So this was a tremendous help to them, okay? Now, he had even more favor when he met his wife, okay? Because sometime down the line, after, he's living his greatest version of himself now, he meets and he marries Cho Mi-sun, okay? And they share a daughter together named Yoons, okay? So it's done some doctors and scientists to find that his daughter, Yoon, actually suffered from the same type of rare tumor that Lee has suffered from earlier on in life. Now, when he was a little boy, like I said, when he was a little boy on up to his early adulthood, he suffered from that tumor. Remember, the community kind of came together to band to get rid of that tumor from him. So, and then fast forward years later, he has a daughter, okay? His daughter suffered from the exact same tumor. Now, this really baffled doctors and scientists alike because a lot of the scientists, they was like, okay, so now this really rare tumor, it's hereditary. So if one person has it, the odds are if they are to reproduce, it's going to continue to plague a certain lineage, a certain family line. You guys get where I'm coming from? So this really took the doctors and scientists by surprise because they didn't expect that to happen. But again, they didn't know much about this tumor because it was very rare. Okay. Now, it's alleged that scientists believe, they believe the tumor to be hereditary. Now, moving on to a little bit more about Lee and how things just bizarrely turned around for him, okay? So on September the 5th, 2017, Lee's wife, Cho Mi-sung, she died. Okay. Now, when she died, it became highly controversial out there in South Korea, as a lot of people speculated if her death was a murder or suicide. Now, listen to this, guys. A murder or suicide. Why? Why would either? Now, why would suicide be an option? There's a lot to unpack as to why people would even suspect it would be a suicide, if you think about it, right? Now, I don't have a lot of details about their inner relationship because I just was not able to find any articles that talked specifically about, perhaps what their family said about their relationship, what their neighbors said, what their coworkers said, what their friends said. It's just not a lot of information out there, and perhaps it is more information about that actually in different articles that are written, in the native tongue of South Koreans. And unfortunately, I'm not bilingual, so I was unable to unwrap any of that information, but I do know that from the reports that I read, they said, her death was highly controversial. A lot of people speculated that she was murdered, and there was no suicide, not even the possibility of a suicide. The reports also suggest, stories begin to emerge after Sun's death that she was forced to make waffles while being recorded for money. Now, when I say waffles, I mean, you guys can imagine if somebody was to say, not somebody, your lover, spouse, or was to say, oh, you look sexy for me, now make some waffles, and they start recording you, right? Now, here's the whole thing. The articles did not give explicit detail about, if she had any provocative clothes on, if her hair and makeup was kind of in a, sexy upbeat or anything else like that, but one can infer, based on the rumors that were kind of spreading around at that time, that she was made to look sexy, and she was cooking waffles, and she was being recorded. Now, it's alleged that she was doing this for money, but that she did not want to, okay, which would imply, okay, that Lee somehow had his wife making these videos, these little kind of sexy, feminine, flaunty videos, okay, and that he was selling them. And he was selling them for money. Now, I know some people might think, well, wait a minute. This is the guy who was given a second chance. This was the guy, who people showed charity to, showed mercy to, showed favor to when they donated. Yep, this is the same guy. Okay, so it has not been confirmed, though, if those recordings were sold to the black market or another unknown source. We don't know exactly. I was unable to uncover exactly where those videos went, okay, but there was a lot of chatter about it in the communities amongst the people that they knew, that I guess that Sun was unhappy with making the videos, but she was still forced to make them against her will. Okay, now this is the reason why there was this is not the sole reason I'm going to say, but this is one of the reasons amongst others that other people, when Sun came up dead, people were like, well, how is that? And not just that, that's when you guys know how people begin to talk after the fact, like, well, I know this, and I heard this, and I'm not sure if it's anything, but I've heard this. And then other people start sharing what they've heard, felt, or experienced with her. Well, yeah, when people start putting those pieces of the puzzle together, like, oh, you share a little piece, I share a little piece, and people start putting the little pieces of those puzzles together, it wasn't passing the smell test, so to speak. You guys know what I mean? So yeah, it just wasn't passing the smell test. So it was just a lot of speculation, like, well, yeah, I don't think she would kill herself. She did have her daughter Ayun to think about, so I don't think she would kill herself. That's what the people out there were speculating. But they did know that she wasn't exactly happy to be making those waffles, okay, and being recorded while she was doing it. So that was something that was on people's minds, okay? So on September the 30th, 2017, Lee allegedly sexually assaulted his daughter's friend. Now, none of the articles that I saw in English would show the name of his daughter's friend. I don't know that her name is so important anyhow, just because of the trauma, associated with what happened to her. So he sexually assaulted his daughter's friend, allegedly, after drugging his daughter and forcing her to help him. So the way that the article was suggesting this is that Lee had his daughter Ayun get her friend and bring her friend to his house, to their house, the family house, right? And then when the girl got there, well, but before he did that, he drugged his daughter Ayun. Okay, in some way, it's alleged that he drugged his daughter, and when she was still groggy and not to herself, he told her, "Go get your friend." And so she did, as you know, a child would comply with their parent. She went and got her friend, and she brought her friend to their house. Now, when the friend got there, Lee allegedly drugged the friend too. Okay, so the friend, she was drugged, okay, and then she was assaulted. And then when she woke up, she was groggy, and she was like, "Mr. Lee, what am I doing here? What am I doing here?" And at that time, it's alleged that Lee, he saw that the friend woke up, and he strangled her. He strangled her to death. Okay. Now, after this horrible thing, so after this, he wakes his daughter Ayun up, and he says to Ayun, "Come on, help me. You got to help me get rid of the body." So he had his daughter, he forced his daughter to help him, dispose of her friend's dead body. Okay. Now, it's just so much that is horrendous about this story. You know, it's like his daughter was traumatized. She has to be traumatized for the rest of her life. And also, I should mention, the article did say that his daughter Ayun is only 14 years old. She was only 14 years old when this happened. So at 14 years old, you know, and I don't even know that anyone ever could imagine that. It's just that grotesque. At 14 years old, your dad drugs you and makes you bring your friend over. You do as he requested. Then he drugs your friend, assaults her, and then kills her. And then wakes you up and tell you, "Come on, help me get rid of this body." What? What? The girl, she has to be absolutely, yeah, she has to be, she'll never be the same again, that's for sure. She'll definitely never be the same again. That is absolutely for sure. It's just a horrible thing to happen altogether, guys. So, Lee's crime, you know, when it became very popular out there in South Korea, as many people, they were absolutely shocked. They were absolutely shocked. It was like, it would be equivalent to like the crime of the century, something that rocks the entire town. Nobody expected this to be coming from somebody who was given so much. You know what I mean? Nobody expected this to be coming from somebody who wrote a book on happiness. Nobody. They just didn't see it coming. It was a lot to fathom, okay? Excuse me. So when the residents of South Korea realized that Lee was the same guy who had, you know, they had previously donated all this money to, they had previously showed all this support and love for, the country was in an outrage. They were absolutely in an outrage. Okay, they couldn't believe it. Now, the residents did not know that Lee was a criminal. Lee actually had 11 counts on his rap sheet, and it was unbeknownst to people. They didn't know that part of him. But it's equivalent to, like, if any of us, okay, I'm just going to say, like, if any of us, if we were to donate to a cause because we thought it was noble, right, we might not know, and it's likely that we would not know all the background stuff. You know what I mean? All the background stuff for that cause, you know, and all the people involved and what they did in their earlier part of life or the later part of life or whatever else. The odds are we're probably not going to know all that stuff. So, you know, these people, they didn't know it either. But when they heard it, they were just completely shocked. Like, wait a minute. He has 11 counts on his rap sheet? You know, like, this guy is like a criminal, and he's been out here doing things. And another part of the article also said that that Lee, he had been expelled from his secondary school, as for some odd reason it was believed that he devised a plan to make sure that he was kicked out of school because he didn't want to go. So from a very young age, you know, it was signs that there could have been other things going on. Okay, now, I kind of understand the secondary school thing. I understand it in this regard. For him to have a tumor that could have made his body physically appear abnormal, I couldn't imagine a kid wanting to go and be bullied or stared at and stuff like that. So I understand it in that regard. But making sure that he was kicked out of school and that, I don't understand why he would go that far. I would just think more so that he would communicate with his parents or whoever was around and tell them how he's feeling about whatever he's experiencing when he was, you know, when he's alone with those kids. But instead, he took it another way, and he devised a plan to make sure that he was kicked out of secondary school. Now, the residents of South Korea were shocked to later learn that Lee has spent now this is the part that's a kicker, okay? So all the money that had been donated to Lee, like just trying to put into him and trying to help him, I guess just like cope with things and pay for medical expenses and kind of get through life and navigate it the best way, he knew how with his new existence, even after the tumor was removed. Okay. So a lot of that money that was left, a very bizarre thing to me was that he spent a lot of that money on luxury hats. Right. So he had some kind of a deal with hats where he just really loved them, and luxury hats was his thing. And he spent a lot of that money on luxury hats, which is also interesting to know that he did that, considering the fact that his daughter Ayun suffered from the same rare condition that he did with that tumor. And I can't find one article or report that suggests that he actually used any of that money to help his daughter out, to help cure her from the same thing that he suffered from, which I think is completely bizarre. Okay. So Lee, he was arrested for the murder of his daughter's friend. Okay. Originally, he was sentenced to death. Okay. However, his sentence was commuted. Now, I know some people will say, "Oh, I don't believe in the death penalty." No, he shouldn't have. He should have had to stay in jail. And then you have it's always that debate, right? And it's always people on the other side and go, "Nope, he needs to get every bit of that death penalty. And if it was your family, then you should want the same." Everybody's gonna, feel a little bit different about it. And I don't think there's no right answer or any wrong answer. But in this case, his sentence was commuted, and he did not. So he's still in jail to this day. Okay. Now, but the part that I did find very interesting is that Lee's daughter Ayun, she was sentenced to 46 years in jail, and they said it's under the juvenile law. Now, this is the part that I don't get about this. His daughter was just 14 when this happened. Her friend was 14. She's not of legal age and consent in South Korea at 14, which means she's only doing exactly what it is that her parent / guardian told her to do. That's all she was doing. I'm not saying that she was right for that, because at 14, I do believe that kids know right from wrong. I'm not going to pull any straws about that. They know right from wrong at 14. In her case, this was her father, a male figure that she could have feared. Likely, she probably did fear him, okay? And he told her to go get her friend. She did as she was told. He assaulted her friend. He murdered her friend. And then he had her help him take her friend's body and dispose of it. She suffers from all kind of PTSD, and everything else is the likelihood of that, right? I just think that with her getting 46 years, and I know South Korea is extremely strict, you guys. I mean, sheesh Louise, South Korea is strict. For a 14-year-old to get 46 years for doing exactly as her parent guardian told her to do, I think is extreme. Should she have spent some time in jail? Sure, because she's an accomplice to a murder, right? Even though she's a victim, just like her friend. Well, her and her friend are both victims. Let's be clear about that. Her and her friend are both victims. However, her friend is murdered, and there's no coming back for her, right? That's the end of that. She never comes back. And I know that it has, the law has to be surrounding about, something or another of, saying something. You didn't say anything, though. You didn't, you did what you were told. You had to do it. You were terrified, likely. So you did what you were told, but you also did not say anything about it, and you have to think about this. Her friend's family had to suffer tremendously. They had to be in great anguish, depression, anger, fear. I just can imagine that there was a plethora of emotions that her family had to feel, right, and experience. So yes, it's warranted that Ayun, Lee's daughter, would get some time. I just think that it's particularly interesting that they would throw almost 50 years at a 14-year-old who was likely terrified. She was definitely a victim too, and she was doing as she was told. I just think that time, the time they gave her seems a bit extreme. You guys light up the comments and let me know your thoughts. I would love to know what you guys think about this story today. I want you guys to weigh in. That is all that I have for this true crime story. It's very interesting. It was sent to me. Thank you to the person who sent this story to me. I do appreciate covering new stories everywhere. different, whether it doesn't matter what century it is, it doesn't matter what country it is. If it is interesting or new to me, I will cover it. So with that being said, if you guys have any stories, true crime stories that you guys would like me to cover, you guys can feel free to go ahead and shoot me an email, planettie@gmail.com. You guys can DM me on Instagram, planet_tie007. Okay, and then I'm happy to go ahead and research it and see what I can find. Now, yeah, I just want you guys to let me know if you ever heard of this story. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell anyone and everyone that your girl Planet Tie is out here telling you guys about a true crime story that I never heard of and you might not have either. Like I always say, there's always another story to be told, but for now,